Hello everyone, this is Crota giving you a shoutcast between WhiteRa and Abver here in the Xel'Naga Caverns. This is game 3 in a matchup. It is a 3-game series. I won't tell you if it's best of 3 or best of 5 and someone just happened to win a lot of the games, just because I don't know if you guys are watching this out of order. So some of the times I know that the game is a series, I just don't know if it's a best of 5, best of 7, best of 3, and I don't want to try to give it away. So if you guys haven't seen the other games, go ahead and check them out. But this is the 3rd game in the series. We now have WhiteRa spawning as the red Protoss player on the north side of the map. Meanwhile, we have Abver spawning on the south side of the map as the purple Zerg. Zerg versus Protoss here in the Xel'Naga Caverns should be a great matchup, as there is just a lot of chances and a lot of opportunities to make very, very interesting styles of play. Back over here, it looks as though, yeah, WhiteRa opening up with a 10 gateway. So this is a very, very early 10 gateway, and he will be trying to push out with Zealots. It does not look like he's going to be chrono boosting. Oh, he is chrono boosting his Nexus now, but he may decide to save up enough energy in order to be able to chrono boost 1 or 2 Zealots out very, very quickly. I do not see an assimilator being warped in anytime soon, as we now see a probe making its way out in order to do some scouting, and there's that second chrono boost, so he is going for a stronger economy. I guess he just wanted to get that gateway just a little bit earlier, and it should show up in the tab. Yeah, even though WhiteRa has been chrono boosting, we see that Abver does have a slight advantage in terms of that harvester count, sitting at 15 compared to 14, and now falling behind a little bit as he does set up a hatchery and is also getting a spawning pool at essentially the same time. Sorry, extractor at the same time, and then there is that spawning pool. So that spawning pool is already down. Does WhiteRa see? No, he does not see the hatchery down over here, so he may think that his opponent is just going for that standard spawning pool, the spawning pool hatchery play, and that may be spell trouble for WhiteRa. WhiteRa has not seen the hatchery over here just quite yet, and is now making its way over, and he will see that the hatchery is already halfway completed. So he's probably scratching his head, wondering what exactly happened there, as we now see a drone pathing back and forth will not allow for a pylon to be placed over here anytime soon, as now we see WhiteRa also getting a stronger economy going, finally getting that cybernetics core, sitting at 19 probes. We'll be able to get to 20 in just a second as this probe continues to wander around and perhaps try to, no, he's not going to do any zapping whatsoever with his little particle beam, and decides instead to return home. Will be able to get home and deposit those minerals that he rightfully stole from the base of Abver. So Abver currently getting that metabolic boost, also getting a hatchery. The hatchery is also training queens, so that is the only unit coming in from Zerg that you actually train. Everything else is morphed from larva, so that's one of the reasons why I suggest to Zerg players that you get even more queens. It doesn't slow down your larva production, it doesn't slow down your army production, and it is so strong at dealing with air units. We now see that one stalker is trying to chase down that overlord down to 37 hit points. It will be able to park itself right there, and it may be just beyond sight range, or combat range, yeah, just beyond combat range, in between these two ledges over here, as that overlord sitting at 41 hit points, and will be able to just sit there for quite some time, able to keep track of very little on the map, unable to even see any of these minerals to see if they're currently being mined at all. Zergling still wandering around as well, and we'll be able to head up over here, and it's going to be 6 Zerglings against 2 Stalkers. If there is 1 Zealot in that group, I would believe that the Zealots would have the advantage, and now we may get a proxy pylon and get some Zealots warped in just a moment. We now see Overlords now making their way over, and now we see Stalkers trying to take down that Overlord. Overlord already very low on hit points, already down to 61 hit points, as those Zerglings now come out and do the swarm, and may be able to get a lot of damage. Down goes the Overlord, but is going to trade it for 2 Stalkers, and a little bit of a misjudgment there. And fighting on creep, the Zerglings got that metabolic boost, and now able to take down those 2 Stalkers for the cost of 1 Overlord. Always a very even trade there, but Abver is now currently supply locked at 38 over 36, as those Zerglings now trying to get in. There are 3 sentries over here, and those sentries will be able to sit in that position very, very nicely with the help of 1 Zealot acting as that meat shield and hold off the attack. We now see WhiteRa sitting at 500 minerals, and we should be seeing perhaps a Nexus coming in. Now, I said this during a shoutcast or during the dual cast I had on Monday with the Competo Cup. Zerglings and Banelings may become even more and more popular against Protoss, and especially now that a lot of Protoss players seem to be opening up with the Zealot Sentry build. Zealot Sentry build, very, very vulnerable to Banelings, as those Banelings are able to get a lot of splash damage. It only takes one or two Banelings and the help of one Zergling in order to take down a Sentry. Sentries are very low on hit points. After 2 Banelings blow up, those Sentries are down to 10 hit points, and those Zealots are very weak as well. So you can see how much damage in your head that those Banelings would be able to do against this cluster right there. 35 times 5, so 175 damage. Yeah, so that is a large amount of damage that one Baneling could do across multiple units there, as those Zerglings are now moving out. But I digress, as Abver doesn't have a Baneling's Nest, currently going for roaches. And now those roaches are being trained. We do see more spawn larva and no tech to tier 2 just quite yet, as those Zerglings now trying to come in and try to do another surround. WhiteRa doing a great job with those force fields, trying to hold off many of those units so far, as those Zealots are now getting flanked as well. Some of those Sentries are going to be in a little bit of a scary situation, as those Zerglings are trying to get more damage in. Those Sentries are now still getting more force fields in, and now warping in a Zealot in order to get a block on one of those Zerglings. Nicely done. And the units lost for Abver sitting at 1200. Meanwhile, WhiteRa sitting at 1700. Those early stalkers that were lost, just adding to those numbers there. As Abver now getting more and more roaches, he should be teching the tier 2 at some point, as roaches are so much stronger and so much faster when they have their movement speed upgrade, making them faster than stalkers. So roaches now on their way off to the north. We do see one photon cannon currently being warped in. We also see a Stargate now trying to train up a Void Ray. That Void Ray will be absolutely critical in trying to deal with those roaches, as roaches have a fair amount of hit points, but they are armored units, so they will take that full 25 damage per second on a fully charged Void Ray. As those roaches now try to come in, there is a decent number of sentries. Roaches now trying to push through still, and now getting a lot of damage across some of those Zealots, as those roaches are still unable to get any damage past those force fields. Force fields getting in the way, but more stalkers now getting taken down. Sentries getting picked apart here, as those roaches will be able to force down that last photon cannon, and out comes that hero Void Ray. That one Void Ray should be able to fend off the rest of this attack here, as those roaches are just trying to run around. The one Nexus over here will be taking a fair amount of damage from those roaches. Roaches also taking down and sniping down many of those probes. But this one Void Ray already up to 4 kills will quickly get up to 5 in just a moment. And now we see this one pylon trying to get powered down, and that would stop the production of any additional Void Rays there, as this one Void Ray still getting a ton of kills. And now Stalker's up on that high ground. In comes a force field. Zerglings now getting caught out of position once again. Roaches and now just getting sniped down even further by that one Void Ray. That Void Ray getting up to 10 kills, and now we'll be able to clean up some of those Zerglings very, very easily. However, the Nexus is taken down, and now WhiteRa in serious trouble. He is just trying to fend off this attack, as now we see another hatchery being placed down here. So Abver will be able to continue to produce a lot of Zerglings. One of the problems with going heavy Zerglings is the amount of larvae that they require in order to produce a 10 food army is significantly higher than, say, the 5 larvae that you need for Mutalisks or the 5 larvae you need for roaches or Hydralisks. But by getting another hatchery in play, he should be able to swarm with those units very easily. Zerglings once again trying to test the waters, will be able to get some damage onto this one Nexus. Nexus already getting low on hit points, and not able to get WhiteRa to cancel that Nexus, as we see another forge currently being warped in. So really well played by Abver so far. Abver, he could take this time to perhaps expand into this location while taking these backdoor rocks out. There is another hatchery here, and now in comes the Void Ray. The Void Ray wants to get some damage in, already has 15 kills, and now there is currently one queen in play, only one queen, and that may spell trouble. The hatchery now taking a lot of damage from this one Void Ray here. Queen now trying to make its way over. The queen does outrange that Void Ray, as more queens now coming in to join in on that fight. The queen's now coming in, and now that Void Ray needs to get the heck out of there. Did not take any serious damage whatsoever, as now that spawn larva is being used on that hatchery as well. The queen's trying to take down these rocks. Queen's not going to be able to deal that much damage against those rocks. Roaches have a much better time trying to deal with those rocks, as creep tumors are now being laid down. Another Void Ray catching an Overlord in the middle of the map, and down it goes. Kasplat, and just leaving entrails all across the center in the Xel'Naga Watch Cavern. Sorry, the Xel'Naga Cavern. Yeah, Watchtower and Cavern combined together. Anyways, the Nexus is up and running. You can see the probe count, 36 Harvesters compared to 25 drones. WhiteRa still needs to figure out what exactly he wants to do. He does have a lot of energy, or a fair amount of energy on these sentries, so he will be able to get a lot of force fields in play, but Guardian Shields don't quite work nearly as well against Marines. It reduces the damage on Marines by, what, 20 or 33%, but it only reduces the damage on Roaches by 20%. And yeah, that is significant enough as these Queens now try to push out, try to move out, and there is that one Void Ray in the air getting a lot of damage. Roach is now giving chase, getting a lot of damage across multiple Stalkers. Stalkers can decide to pull back here as those force fields are giving a little bit of protection here, back and forth. Queens now trying to push through, no Ultralisk whatsoever, and those Roaches without Burrow unable to really do anything at all. One of the things that Zerg players really need to get a hold of is starting to use Burrow. Because sentries are so gas intensive, if you find yourself fighting against a lot of sentries, he may not have that many observers in the area. So if you are able to Burrow your Roaches, you're able to slowly recharge your hit points and then come back up. On top of that, if you have tunneling claws, those tunneling claws allow you to move underneath force fields and then pop back up on the other side to snipe down those sentries, stalkers, and zealots. But we now see a robotics bay coming online in addition to an immortal, so we are going to see higher tier 3 units once again. Yeah, as that current Overlord, it was taken down. There is one Zergling trying to hide out over here. The one Void Ray with those Stalkers and Sentries, and now Immortals once again doing another push. We now see a lot of Roaches. Those Roaches are upgraded to level, level 1 weapons upgrade, and now more force fields coming in. So now WhiteRa doing a great job just splitting off much of this army. These Roaches trying to pick off some of those sentries, unable to get that much damage in, as these Queens getting some transfusion love as well, and now trying to move out. Once again, Roaches do have a very fast movement speed, will be able to get a lot of damage across multiple sentries as they're just simply trying to snipe down those lower hit point units, simply ignoring that Immortal now getting taken down as well. And now the army of Abver just simply going to be able to overpower here. We do have some Hydralisks coming in and some Queens coming in. Those Queens should be able to start transfusing, and now Stalkers trying to run away from Roaches. That Stalker may get taken down as those Roaches do have a movement speed of 3. Stalker still trying to get away. Will he be able to? Yes, he will be able to, as those Roaches now give up the chase. Army of Abver sitting at 2,000 minerals so far, and I misspoke earlier as the Guardian Shields actually reduce. Actually, you know what? I'm not going to even try to do the math. I misspoke earlier on the amount of damage that Guardian Shields reduce against unupgraded Roaches. 16 down to 14. So it is a reduction of 2, which is less than 10%. So yeah, that is... Sorry, slightly more than 10%, as we now have Colossus and Zealots now moving out. The Zealots do not have the level 1 weapons upgrade just quite yet. As I say that, we now see WhiteRa getting that level 1 weapons upgrade, now going for Colossi and Void Rays as well. So it's gonna be Roach Hydra, and now Abver doing a great job with that Burrow, able to recharge his units, and those Roaches also have the level 2 weapons upgrade, able to deal 20 damage per attack now with that Acid Saliva damage. Still need Hive Tech in order to get to level 3, so it will be quite some time, at least 100 seconds, as it does take a lot of time to get into Hive Tech, and I do not believe we even have an Infestation Pit, so it will be quite some time before we get into Tier 3. Roach is now moving down into this location here. We see some Zerglings, Infestors, Hydralisks, and Roaches still scammering about the map on the south side so far, as we are now getting the Protoss level 1 air weapons upgrade. That is most likely for those Void Rays. Void Rays will be able to deal even more damage, and with that continuous attack and the ability to attack move, those Void Rays are going to become very, very dangerous. I do not see anything that's really going to counter those Void Rays just quite yet. No, we do see some Corruptors, so those Corruptors are going to be able to deal damage both towards Colossi and Void Rays, but there's simply just too many Void Rays right now. Those Void Rays are going to be able to deal a lot of damage, including that bonus damage against those Corruptors, but the Corruptors are not going to be able to deal the bonus damage against Void Rays, as they are not massive units. Hatchery now down over here. We see Abver running off of 3 bases. Economy is significantly stronger for Abver, currently sitting at 1,500 minerals. And now one burrowed Zergling here, and very nicely done. One burrowed Zergling with no observers in play, causing WhiteRa to warp in a photon cannon here and delaying the production time and the build time on this Nexus by at least 40 game seconds. As that photon cannon is now coming online, down goes that Zergling, and now we should be seeing a Nexus as soon as WhiteRa has enough minerals. WhiteRa forced to just mine off of 8 mineral patches now. Meanwhile, Abver mining off of 16 mineral patches of blue, and then a little bit left over here, and now transferring some drones off onto that high ground. So 8 drones onto that high ground with some corruptors joining in, and that is a lot of corruptors. I hope, however, that Abver does not overly invest into corruptors, as once those colossi and those void rays get taken down, they are going to be simply useless, and with no infestation pit and no tech to tier 3, he will not be able to upgrade those corruptors into broodlords. Roach is now on the move with that Zergling army. Hydralisks are upgraded to 1 as well, as those corruptors are now in the air. Will those corruptors be able to deal any significant damage? The void rays have a range of 6. I believe the corruptors also have a range of 6 as well, as those corruptors now going after one colossus. Down it goes, and now going after some of those void rays and colossus, as those roaches now simply just swarming into this location. Zealots getting caught out of position, as now they are unable to engage the downside of these units over here, as those corruptors are just focusing down Colossus one after the other, simply ignoring the void rays, and that may be a problem, as those corruptors are now simply getting outnumbered, and those void rays are going to be able to have their way with those roaches, as those roaches now continue to move across the map. Gonna once again take down this photon cannon here. The corruptors have been finished, and now this Nexus will get taken down, and now these roaches need to get the heck out of dodge. They are going to be taking a lot of damage, and now in comes some more corruptors. They're focusing on one void ray and another 3 void rays coming in. So Roach is now coming in over here trying to deal more damage. Abver does have a much larger army, but Abver doesn't have the right counter units. So those void rays, if they're able to just deal enough damage and finish this off, it may be over. But with this Nexus slowly being sniped by 2-1 roaches, WhiteRa says GG. So Abver taking Game 3 in this best of 3 series between Abver and WhiteRa here in the Xel'Naga Caverns. Just really well played by Abver. Abver opening my eyes to early Zergling harassment and early Zergling rushing. He did not decide to power drone, and by producing a lot of early Zerglings, he was able to force WhiteRa to not be able to expand that early. And then by the time that WhiteRa was able to finally move out, Zerglings were still in his base at the natural expansion, taking it down and just pushing WhiteRa further and further behind. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I hope you guys enjoyed this 1v1 replay between Abver and WhiteRa here in the Xel'Naga Caverns.